20. 20 is such a nice, lovely, round number. And I want to welcome you to this week's live event here on YouTube. My name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for joining me. The chat is open, so please feel free to chime in, say hello. If you've got a question that is voice related, music related, or related in somehow to this planet-side trip that we are all embarked upon, please fire off your question. I look forward to hearing from you. I do have a few questions that were sent in this week, so I want to get on those right now. Before I do, thank you if you've chosen to subscribe, and if you haven't yet, I hope that you will consider doing so now or at your earliest convenience. That's really it. Yeah. So I have a soprano that wants to masquerade as a contralto from time to time, and they've read online that some people have damaged their voices. It just doesn't surprise me, really, when trying to sing too far outside of their Fosh. And Fosh is a word that was coined in the German school of voice, and it relates to your vocal range. So like alto, soprano, tenor, that sort of thing. And they sent in 3 quick questions. How do I determine if I can do so safely? First rule of thumb, if it hurts, stop. Period. Under no circumstances, continue. So yeah, if it hurts, stop. If you find that you're having, like you're getting hoarse or you're losing your voice or things like that, stop. It's not in the right place for your voice. Or you're doing it in a fashion that is fatiguing your vocal fold overly too much and causing you some strain on the voice, and that's just going to lead to problems long term. 2, how do I know how much larynx depression is too much? This is a very interesting question, and I'm very grateful for this question, because unfortunately, or I should say, it reveals to us a common misconception about the larynx and its role in tone production, which is that the height of the larynx is going to determine pitch, and the height of the larynx determines airflow. So really, the larynx should be in a reasonably neutral position at all times, whether you're singing high pitches or you're singing lower pitches in the lower part of your range, or even dipping, too far down. We want to keep it in a neutral position. So if you're really pushing down on the larynx, that is going to be disadvantageous for tone production. Hello, Aldo. Just wanted to check in with everybody who's on screen. Hello. JAPADOGI, hello to you as well. Diana, hello. That's a new voice. Welcome to the live event. I'm doing fine this evening. I hope that you are doing well wherever in the world you happen to be. And Muhammad Huzafa Muhammad, 0 about any singing knowledge, you just sing. That is very, very cool. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask away. If not, enjoy the live event and enjoy chatting with people on screen or whatever happens to come up along the way here. A couple more questions here that were mailed in. How do I discern when I have reached the lowest end of my usable range? Now, this is an interesting question because I'm going to focus mostly on the word usable as it pertains to a naturally sounding voice. So obviously, if you're really going into the basement there and you're pressing the larynx into a awkward position and you're really stretching down there, that is not going to be terribly usable, not terribly reliable in a performance situation. So I'm just striking that out of the usable range. In terms of a natural singing phonation, getting to the bottom of your range, it's really going to come down to singing some scales down there and finding out what you're most comfortable with and what you can get reliable, consistent results with. If it's inconsistent, why would you want to perform with that? I mean, if you're going to walk out in front of people and sing something, you want to know that you stand a reasonably good chance of doing it correctly. So speaking for myself, I know that when I get down towards low C, my voice really has to brighten up for it to be consistent. sound like a baritone because I'm not a baritone. If I try to force my voice to sound that way, I'm going to get into trouble very, very quickly. And realistically, that's about as low as I like to perform because given the vagaries of what I may walk into on stage, I know that low C with that kind of vocal delivery, if I hear myself or not, I'm going to be all right. It's going to work out okay. I do hope that helps. There are some other questions, but I'm going to check back in with the screen here. Maddie, hello again. I'm glad that you're joining us, and I'm glad that you're excited. After a busy few weeks starting college as a classical voice student, congratulations. That is super, super exciting. If I may ask, where are you studying? Coach Andrew, hello, and hello to you too. Can you tell me something about vocal compression, JAPDOG? Are you meaning about studio stuff? If you're talking about using plugins or out-of-the-box compression like an actual compressor, if that's what you're meaning, or if you mean something else, please elaborate on that. I can't quite read what that... Alara Sophia says hello to everyone, and hello to you too, Alara Sophia. Aldo, I found out that every month for 3 to 4 days, I need to do a revise on some techniques. Videos of mine, thank you for watching. How to sing in head voice to keep my head voice strong. Are there any other go-to techniques? Well, really, any of the full range warm-ups on the channel for each of the individual fascias that I typically do videos for will go into the upper registers of the voices. So if you mean like you need a little refresher on the technical aspects of how to access and make a smooth transition into your head voice to remind you of how to do it so that when you do the full range warm-ups, you're using your head voice, I think that's pretty normal. And certainly in my own technical practice, there are times when until recently, there were times that I would still specifically work on upper register access and upper register smoothing. But really, that just gets blended into my overall technical practice, which is included in the full range warm-ups. Can you be more specific? Oh, you were more specific. Let me see what you've got there. If it is that I should look up every month, for example, arpeggio, falsetto, not necessarily for a revise. Okay, I should have kept on reading. Yeah, anything full range would be useful. The endurance warm-ups or the endurance videos, some of them will be into the over the secondo passaggio, some of them will be right in the zona di passaggio. In either case, that's going to make for a really, really great workout for staying sharp on your transition technique, getting through the zona di passaggio, getting over the secondo passaggio. I am writing a guidebook to the videos on YouTube, and you will be able, once I release the book, you will be able to cross-reference all of the videos, on the channel in three different ways. One, they'll be internally referenced in the guidebook. So let's say you did a general warm-up, then you will almost always have a choice of going, like if it was too hard, you'll be able to go back, or if it's like, okay, now I want to go into my upper register, then you'll be able to go to the next video and it'll delineate the sequences you can go through from any given video. You'll also be able to search by keyword within the PDF so that you could type into a search like airy, my voice is airy, and then it will give you a list of all of the words that are keynoted that work on airiness, and you'll be able to do the same thing for ear training, be able to do the same thing for upper register work, advanced technique, legato, all that kind of stuff is going to be cross-referenced in the guide. So right now, yeah, like if you search the channel, search for things like, full range, zona de passaggio, secondo passaggio, the break. Those things all address the technical aspects about singing over the secondo passaggio. Good afternoon, JC's Radiant Ray. Aldo, as an instrumentalist musician, is it true that if you learn to play jazz music, all the other genres will look to you a piece of cake? Interesting question. As a singer, I don't find any difference in singing. The only singers that I studied were Amy Winehouse and Tony Bennett. Yeah, the vocal technique across genres is really, really rather similar. I mean, the technique that you're working with when you work with the stuff on my channel is a kind of hybridization of all the different stuff that I've learned, but it's primarily taken from Richard Miller's way of looking at bel canto. So that's really the kind of root teaching method that I use, but I've repackaged it and found my ways of combining vowels and exercises in ways of looking at the voice to try to help as much as I possibly can. In terms of instrumental music, I don't know. I mean, all the different genres of music have their little things about them that make them so challenging. As a classical musician or an avant-garde musician, which what I was for a long time, the rhythmical precision. It's not that other genres aren't precise; they're precise in different ways. So in the classical realm, we're precise, almost, in an almost metronomic way. At least that's the discipline that I studied, the school that I went to. We were meant to be so metronomically precise. And rock and roll and popular music is very, very precise that way too, but it has different elements where there's flexibility in the rhythm. If you think about like the Chopin method, like the Chopin way of playing piano, it has a certain amount of rubato as you compare the left hand versus the right hand. There's a certain flexibility of rhythm between the two. Jazz, you can have a bass player who's laying so far back on the beat against a drummer that's riding the front edge of the beat, and there is a precision in the way that they integrate. Getting on to improvisation, improvisation is spontaneous composition at an incredibly high level, and yet, much of that is worked out in advance. The great improvisers will study and study and study and improvise and work through their improvisations, and yes, there'll be differences when they finally take it to the stage and do the improvisation, but it's not as if it's a completely extemporaneous art form. So I guess I sort of see the complexities in the different roles that I have played in my musical life. I think there's a beauty and a precision to all the different art forms and music forms that we have. And listen to, like, if you watch Bring on the Night, which is an old Sting documentary about making the album The Dream of the Blue Turtles, and talking to all these jazz musicians that Sting, a pop rock musician, is working with. These are hardcore jazzers. I mean, Kenny Kirkland, Branford Marsalis, Jeff Tain Watts wasn't on that gig. I forget who the drummer was, but they have a really interesting insight on coming to the pop rock table as having been jazz musicians their entire lives. Aldo, Maestro, do you have any recommendations for jazz or blues singers? By the way, your video on how to sing the blues was very inspirational for me. You're very, very welcome. Thank you for saying so. What recommendations in what way? If you could be more specific, what kind of recommendations? About stuff to listen to, or stuff to sing, or what exactly? Mike C91, Does pushing the boundaries of one end of your range affect the other? An interesting question. Yes, but not necessarily permanently. You may find that if you are working primarily in your upper register or around your zona de passaggio, if you then try and sing a song that's in your lower mid range, things may feel a bit out of whack. You want to warm up to whatever range the song is in. Now, if you've got like a full set of music that spans the gamut of your range, then you need to warm up, thoroughly throughout your entire range. But usually not permanently. Can you elaborate? If you wish, if that doesn't answer the question entirely, please elaborate and let me know exactly what's happening for you. Muhammad, Josefa Muhammad. I just like to sing R&B, especially melismas. If I get that right, yes. If you mean several notes on a single vowel sound, that's what a melisma is, yes. My question is on expanding range. As usual, straining my voice, so lost. So when I sing high notes, jump to falsetto for the high part, I just skipping down. High part, low range, how to expand range technically. Okay, well, the actual way of expanding your range involves a certain amount of exercises that begin from the top and work their way down. The thing is, you can hear that's very, very hollow sounding on the top. You. What I'm doing there is I am deliberately making it that noise so that I know I'm using my cricothyroid singing voice. Now, the thing is that once you get really, really competent with singing over the secondo passaggio, then using your cricothyroid singing voice can match the resonance of your chest voice. So again, here's cricothyroid, you. Here's thyroarytenoid, you. Chest voice on the bottom, head voice, if you will, on the top. When I match resonances, this is a good key. Let me have a sip of water. I talk so much and then I launch into some singing thing and it's not always ideal. So, I can sing over the secondo passaggio, make that transition into my cricothyroid dominant singing position, or head voice, if you will, and then come back down. The thing about that is that if you don't learn how to narrow your vowel sounds, and then in the process, you start the process of accessing head voice and the cricothyroid dominant singing posture. You start that process and you learn a lot about vowel modifications when you do that. So there is no fast track to this. You got to learn how to narrow your vowel syllables in the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. That's your chest range, and it's got to be E, A, A, O, and U. E, A, A, O. Once you can do that, then you can learn about opening that vowel sound, U, to access the cricothyroid dominant singing position. Over time, you narrow the intervals. You start working on ascending lines, and by that point, you're getting good to go. You're going to be starting to work on pieces and accessing that range and getting it integrated into your performance technique. And that is the means by which you avoid going E, right, where it gets really, really airy in that falsetto sound. Let me see here. Alana Sophia, you are very, very welcome for the soprano warm-ups. I do them most days, and they're very helpful. I have a question regarding applying them to singing lyrics. Please, I'd love to hear you. Okay, it's down a little bit lower. My voice sounds okay during the warm-up, But as soon as I try to sing a lyric, I seem to lose it all. I think it's a mental block of some sort. Do you have any suggestions that might help? Absolutely. First of all, um, it may be a mental block. It may not. Don't know. Hard to say without hearing you. The thing is that the vocalizations are designed to help you learn about your voice and to help you be successful. When you put them into a song, it's anything goes. We don't get vowel combinations that are always predictable and reliable, and we might have a really really narrow vowel in a very disadvantageous part of our range. So break apart your lyric. Take your melody, whatever it happens to be, work it on a solid vowel sound, whatever you want. I went through this in the How to Sing in Tune video that I think that got released this morning, 2 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time or whatever. And I go through this process about 2/3 of the way through that video. So whatever your melody is, in that video it was okay. I'm gonna change that. So work through your melody on a solid vowel first. Then take a look at your lyrics and take just the vowel syllables out. So in the video I said go home now. And it was like go home now. So the vowels there. And then work your consonants back in once you've got a nice legato phrase. Go home now. And that is the process to make the transition from vocalization to song. And hopefully that will help. JAPADOGI, what's about vocal motion? I mean vocal fatigue. I found that somewhere, but I did not understand what it is about. I meant vocal technique. Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I see fatigue there? Vocal technique. Yeah, I've heard the idea about vocal compression used in conjunction with the idea of staying on the vocal fold. When I talk about staying on the vocal fold, that is my understanding of how people are using the idea of vocal compression. So, for example, if I'm here, and this is way too low for me to be singing on the ligament of my voice. You can hear it going airy there as I'm nearing the primo passaggio. And that's an imbalance. I've either in the past used too much vocal engagement, vocal tension. And so now I'm trying to back off, but I haven't used enough engagement and airflow. And it's that combination of airflow, subglottic pressure, or air pressure below the epiglottis, pressing upwards to the larynx onto the vocal fold. That has to be those two things, the vocal fold engagement and the subglottic pressure, work together to balance the weight on the vocal fold. And when you get it right, you can stay quite light and keep on ascending quite nicely. And that is my understanding of how the notion of compression works. When you have a good balance of subglottic pressure with vocal fold engagement. When you don't have proper quote-unquote compression, you'll get that airiness to it, which I usually refer to as sliding off the vocal fold, which is just as confusing, really. Aldo, wow, it would be great so much. Thank you very, very much. I've had I've had a lot of requests for sequences and things like that. And there's going to be a section in the book where I have like several sequences for the ranges of voices. So there'll be like, 3 or so consecutive videos that you can use. But as I started working on the guide and thinking about how one might use it, it made more sense to enable you all to either back it up if it were a little bit too challenging, or go on to the next stage if you were being successful with a given video. And it also allowed for anyone to start almost anywhere on any video and then be able to move around the channel and see how they can continue to work with their voice. So thank you for saying that. Stuff to sing and listen to. Jazz, blues. That's the... Oh, wait, I skipped over a few. Sorry. JAPADJ. What vocal techniques are commonly used by rock singers to get that specific voice, and how to practice it? Let me see if you were more specific. There are so many singers out there. Right off the top of my head, let's talk about Bono for a brief moment here. Bono jumps between all the techniques that are typically used by almost any vocalist. So there are times when he will belt, and by belting I mean he will force the thyroarytenoid dominant singing position higher than the secondo passaggio in order to have a certain characteristic sound to the voice. He will use falsetto tone production at a range where he could belt, or use head voice, cricothyroid dominant singing position. So he mixes it all up, and that's really, I think, what we're all after. I mean, speaking for myself, the channel and my role as an instructor is to give you the tools to create the music that you wish to create sustainably for as long as you wish to create it. So sometimes that means singing with a belt delivery, and usually I talk about making sure that you stay in a reasonably safe range to do that. There's a lot of discussion about singing into the cricothyroid dominant singing position, because that is typically the most misunderstood as far as I can tell, and also one of the more challenging ways to train our voices. Falsetto tone production, most people can do that. However, once you can sing with a cricothyroid dominant singing voice, you can blend some airiness into it and simulate a falsetto tone production, but still have the endurance and the sustain of line that you wouldn't get with a pure falsetto tone production. So, I mean, all of us, we use all of these techniques in the name of expressing ourselves, and in the name of creating the music that we want to create. But Bono's one example. I think Steven Tyler has perhaps one of the most amazing head voices ever. His transition is so incredibly seamless and useful. Jeff Buckley has an incredibly expressive voice. A lovely. I loved his lighter, very cricothyroid dominant delivery that he would use from time to time, and he would also then belt his brains out from time to time as well too. Of course, Aaron Neville, the lovely falsetto. So light, so effervescent is the word that comes to mind. Adele, I think, has a beautiful, incredibly expressive voice. A little heavy on the thyroarytenoid voice, much less so than she used to be. Belted quite a lot. Now she sings with a much different voice above B natural, right below high C. If you listen to the new stuff, it's very different than it was in the beginning after she had surgery. Equally beautiful, though, and lovely, and incredibly expressive. KD Lang, incredible, like absolutely incredible vocalist. Listen, like look for her on YouTube, and listen to how she sings Hallelujah. It's heartbreaking. It's so beautiful. I mean, I could go on like, and the techniques that they're all using. I mean, now if you listen to Adele before surgery, it was it was very belty. If you listen to her now, she's making a transition into a cricothyroid dominant position. KD Lang is transitioning, and beautifully so. So, I mean, these are all tools, like the tools of our trade. Aldo, inspiration. I like to go all the way back, like as far back as we can, to singers that were doing blues. Blind Lemon Jefferson comes to mind immediately, and they were adapting spirituals into the blues, and it's the synthesis of the music that we're listening to. Gosh, why am I drawing a blank on all these other artists now? But that's where I like to go to, is all the way back, as far back as I can. And the recordings themselves are works of art. They're scratchy and kind of distant, but there is an essence in those recordings which is amazing. It's 6:32, and so I want to do a little station identification. For those of you that are new or just joining us or swinging through, my name is Jeff Rolka, and I want to thank you for joining a live event this evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you happen to be. If you've chosen to subscribe, thank you. If you haven't yet, I hope that you'll consider doing so. Although I heard that a good practice for intonation is to sing some pieces of classical music. Possibly. I would highly recommend a solfege practice. There's some stuff on that on the channel. I haven't done as much of it as I intended to do. I've gotten off that track a little bit. But the thing about classical music and solfege is that it's very, very predictable patterns, much like the vocalizations that we do. However, with the solfege, you have the syllables, and you really start to build a sense of relative pitch, and so you understand the intervals that you are singing in a much different way than if you're just doing it from rote memory. Verdi, Bach, Mozart. I tried a little bit of Mozart and I found it helpful, but if you do it like 3 or 4 times a week, exercise would be a waste of time. Absolutely not. No. If you really want to get a workout in, take the Bach chorales and sing the inner voices. It would be ideal to do them with solfege, honestly, but that is a practice that I do for my own ear training, and it is very challenging. The inner voices of Bach chorales is an incredibly good exercise for ear training. If you're new to it, start with the soprano lines. The soprano lines were taken from hymns that the congregants already knew in the churches that he was writing for. So the soprano lines, and just put it in a key that's easy for you to sing. You don't have to, under no circumstances should you be singing it in the range that it's written in if that's not your comfortable range. Put it in a comfortable range. Put it in a key that's comfortable. And do the soprano lines to get started. You'll see very, very few, if any, accidentals of any kind. They'll be quite true to the key that the chorale is written in. From there, you can probably start working on the bass line, although it's going to skip around a lot, and then move to the inner voices. Maddie Hendricks is talking to Lara Sophia and Muhammad Hosafia Muhammad. I'm so sorry about your middle name. I'll dissect each and every videos of yourself. Tips are great. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you for joining us from Malaysia. That is so cool. Laura Sophia, you are very, very welcome. Do give it a try and let me know how that goes. Capone, my wife's sister died in cancer and funerals are 619. How can sing when you are emotional wreck? Oof. Do you really have to sing at that? I mean, I mean, yeah, I guess. I'm so sorry to hear that. I suppose I sang at my grandmother's funeral, and I just had to turn it off, honestly. I just had to look away and turn it off and be someplace else. I suppose thinking back to that, I just was hyper myopic with the lyrics of the music that we were singing, and I forced myself to focus on nothing but that. But I'm so sorry for your loss. Aldo, how many hours per day would you consider a healthy singing? Warm up, exercises, songs, every day, maximum time. Certainly depends on the vocalist. To a certain degree, I suppose it depends on the repertoire. When I was in San Francisco, I worked with a lot of metal people singing like metal, and they would come to me because they were getting fatigued from the screaming and all the stuff like that. And we could work so that they had a lot more endurance, but there was still a kind of a time limit where beyond which it just wasn't going to work out. So if you can warm up, do your like in by warm ups I'm meaning technical exercises. So maybe like pure thyroarytenoid dominant singing, that aspect of your warm up is like a few minutes. And then you're warming up your full range specific to the repertoire that you're going to be working on. So if you're working on Bohemian Rhapsody, then depending on the key that you're doing it in, at the very least, you're warming up through the secondo passaggio well into the upper register of your voice, well beyond the third passaggio point, in order to cover the range that's in that song. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Some people warm up very, very quickly. Some people take a little bit more time. Usually for myself, if I can warm up for 15 to 20 minutes, I'm pretty comfortable. But then I've got to keep singing. If I warm up for 15 or 20 minutes and I don't keep singing, I will quickly I will quickly not be able to sing at my full potential for the pieces of music that I want to sing. Now, if I just immediately dive right into it and keep going, then that's fine. So at the end of the day, if you're making a smooth transition through the secondo passaggio, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, there are times when I might teach for 4 or 5 hours a day, and I do sing a reasonable amount in my teaching. I don't sing a ton, but I'm talking and singing and doing all that kind of stuff. And I can do that day after day after day without any deleterious effects, because I'm making sure that I'm really well engaged. And when I'm singing, I'm making a smooth transition, so I'm not straining my voice. I'm not incurring unnecessary vocal fatigue. If you're following that, then I would suspect that you can sing as much as you like, assuming that you're in a good environment, it's not too loud, and you are in no way straining your voice. If you're straining your voice, even in subtle ways, then that is going to be greatly reduced. But I don't think about it in terms of maximum times. I think about it in terms of minimum time to maintain a skill set. And I would think that if you're practicing, if you're talking about making successful transitions through the secondo passaggio and having a full range, consistent timbre, probably the minimum amount of time you're going to be able to get away with on a day is going to be 20 minutes to a half an hour of singing. Assuming that your technique is solid, your airflow is solid, and you aren't incurring any strain on your voice, then I don't see why there's any maximum time limit on your ability to sing. Elara Sophia loves KD Lang's voice, and Tracy Thorne, I haven't heard of her. I will have to look that up. And of course, Karen Carpenter. Love it. Love it. JAPADOGI. I have a question about tongue placement. Excellent. When it is about exercises, singing vowels or long notes in songs, then it is understandable. But what's about singing words in songs like RHCP, Give It Away? Red Hot Chili Peppers, Give It Away, Give It Away, Give It Away now. The thing about tongue placement in vocalizations is that we're putting it in idealized locations, in idealized ways, so that we can pay attention to and become aware of its position for the formation of certain vowels. Once we get into a song, the tongue ideally will have enough release to move into an advantageous position for whatever consonant it is part that whatever consonant is part of the word that you are singing. The thing is, though, is that there is a sort of I call it, what do I call it? The spectrum of intelligibility. All right. So on one hand, you have speech. I'm not paying any attention to the length of my vowels nor how they align, and consonants play a fairly significant role in my diction because I want you to understand me. On the other hand is vocalese, where it's only vowels. There's no understanding necessary. It's just melody and vowel sounds. When we sing songs, we're somewhere in between. So in a song like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Give It Away Now, that's mostly what I would call it is Sprechgesang, speech sing. The onus is much more heavily on the consonants of those words so that you get a good, clean, rhythmical articulation of that lyrical line. I can't remember the chorus of that song now. But in any case, a lot of those Red Hot Chili Pepper songs, when you get to the chorus, I know for sure. There, I'm going to place a lot more. I don't know what song that was, but I think that's a Red Hot Chili Pepper song. I'm much more focused on the vowel sounds, and the consonants are only in the line enough to make sure that you can understand the words that I'm singing. If I'm too heavy on those consonants, it's going to break up my line too much. So it changes, honestly. Even within the song, it can change how much we emphasize consonants or vowels. And the tongue is going to be free, ideally, to move into positions that support either of those ways of singing. Joey Chester, I'm doing well. How are you, Joey? I hope that you are doing well. I see you've got a question there. I'm going to get to Mike Marshall's written in here. Jeff, are all vowels sung through the zona de passaggio like the way you described the oo sound, hourglass? That's a very cool question. Thank you for asking. The idea behind the hourglass is a broader concept. At least when I talk about the hourglass concept for moving through the zona de passaggio, it's the idea of our technique below the zona de passaggio has a little bit more latitude, and technique above the zona de passaggio has a bit more latitude. In other words, if we're a little bit off, it'll probably be all right. We'll probably stay on the vocal fold. We'll probably be okay. But when we're in the zona de passaggio, when we're in that narrow place where the thyroarytenoid muscle is kind of giving way to the cricothyroid muscle, we have to be a bit more specific, a bit more attentive to our technique in order to successfully sing through the zona de passaggio. So, yeah, all the vowels in our technique in general through the zona de passaggio needs to be more specific in order to do it successfully and have good, consistent timbre from below the secondo passaggio to above the secondo passaggio. Thank you. Cool question. Joey Chester, can you talk more about squillo and singer's formant? How can I achieve it? Okay. The singer's formant, best exercise I know for the singer's formant is that NG thing. It's in a couple different videos. And in a nutshell, you start off with hung, and the tongue is lifted in the rear of the oral cavity. It is forcing all the air into the sinus cavities, and I am going forward with it. I think the video was called How to Sing in the Mask, or Using Mask Resonance. And when you want to then hear your voice with the singer's formant, you release it to like an ah or an a. Without that, still in tune, still a cool sound, but it doesn't have that formant that really projects. And that's what the singer's formant really helps us with, is about projection. When we talk about projection, we want to talk about the singer's formant, whether you're using a mic or not. That brilliance to the voice really cuts through. Squealo, as I understand it, is what I am talking about when I talk about a well-balanced tone production. So it's having appropriate subglottic pressure, airflow, matched with appropriate vocal fold engagement, so that the two work together to allow the vocal fold to meet as fully as possible, so that it adducts as fully as possible, appropriate to the range that you are in. Adduct is the word when things move towards the center of the body. So the vocal fold adducts when we sing, and it abducts when we breathe. So you take a breath in, the vocal folds separate. It actually would look like that if you were looking down on them. And then it adducts when you sing, and getting a complete adduction is what gives us that squealo. So short vowel sounds, e, with an H is really, really good if you're kind of in the intermediate zone there. If you're just starting out with it, start with like a wee. That'll make it a little bit easier to match up subglottic pressure or engagement with vocal fold engagement to get that nice sound. Related to Capone's question, how does crying affect one's singing? After crying, while crying, how would you recover? Man, well, when you start crying, like, of course, like your sinuses get going, and your snot. I mean, I get snotty. I don't know about everybody else, but my nose runs, and all those kinds of things happen. Like, it can go back, and if too much goes back, it can irritate your throat forward. Although I suppose it could clear out your sinuses, which could be a good thing in a way. But the biggest part about that is for me, the sense of vulnerability. If I'm feeling that bad, then I feel it here. I feel it deep in my core, and that's what I rely upon to sing effectively. And if I can't rely upon that, I'm just lost. That's my bread and butter right there. JAPADOGI, can you send me some sheets for practicing? Oops, sorry about that, folks. Hope they didn't explode in your ears. Sight reading, I can play a single line, but I have got problems with playing two lines in different clefs on piano. Sight reading for piano, JAPADOGI? I'm probably not the person for that. Sight singing, yes. Sight singing, yes. I'm happy to send you guys. There's an archival of these like million song books. Incredible, like absolutely incredible. It's like an endless supply of sight singing material, and I can send a link to you. Just get in touch with me via voicelessonssf.com. Actually, I think you've contacted me before, so you probably have my email address. Oh, Everything But the Girl. Well, I've heard of them. Thank you for elaborating on that, Alara Sophia. Capone, John Farnham is excellent singer, or was. So like, you are the voice. Is he singing falsetto or head voice in this song, Higher Pitches? I don't know. I don't know that song, I'm afraid. I'd have to listen to it. Maddie, University of Alabama, 30 minutes from where I live. I'm loving all my classes, especially private lessons. Absolutely. Yeah, when I was so excited when I went to university. It was like finally where I belonged. Very excited for you. I hope you have an amazing time. Aldo, RSB Around the World. I found out a couple days ago. Thank you. That's the song. Okay, cool. Right on. Thank you for enlightening me. Found out a couple days ago that a lot of Billboard singers use auto. Of course they do. Is it because they focus on emotion when they sing, or is it because they? I don't know. It's funny when I listen to auto-tuned vocalists that I can hear the tone quality and as it relates to the range that they're singing in it, and when they don't match up, I can usually tell that they've been tuned. Of course, I'm an audio engineer as well, and I have auto-tuned many, 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 many vocal lines over the years. It's there. Nowadays, you can't release a record in the pop format without using it. I mean, I suppose Adele doesn't, which is cool. Or at least she didn't used to. I don't know if she does now. But in the pure pop format, Autotune is ubiquitous, and you can't release a record without it. A lot of people are very, very sneaky about it. The Shins, they don't sound. He doesn't sound like he's autotuned, but he is. Um, it's a tool. Mm. Yes, and they do use it live as well too, Aldo. You're absolutely right. Ahmed Ben Hassin, Tunisia. Hello from England. Hello in Tunisia. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your kind words and your question. I'm going to skip down. Can we pass from the tenor range to the alto? Absolutely. Well, yes and no. If you're a tenor, you're a tenor. You're not going to become an alto, but you can sing in that range. The ranges largely overlap. I mean, virtually every voice from baritone through to soprano can sing. Now, granted, with all of that, it's a fairly narrow spot. But I mean, baritones can sing high, and sopranos can usually get down to a middle C. So, baritone vocalists, their primo passaggio falls somewhere in that range. So they're getting, into their upper register. But I mean, there's a lot of overlap in the vocal fascias. So absolutely, you can sing the alto parts. I'm skipping back here. Maddie, aware of your breath and giving me great techniques to help relax tension in my tongue, jaw, and forehead. Fantastic. Excellent. That is wonderful to hear. Patricia, welcome. It's good to see you back. I'm glad that you made it. Talk a lot about letting each passaggio happen when it needs to. Absolutely. Not pushing past a certain point. I like this teacher more and more the more that you write in, Maddie. Ahmed, I read that one. I really enjoyed doing sirens on a light ooh. Yes. I've been classified as a light lyric soprano. That's very cool. Patricia, ask about ring or twang being the same as mask resonance. To a certain degree, yes. Ring, yes. Twang is sometimes vocal fold engagement. What I would consider to be a high glottic, a superglottic singing position. So a lot of vocal fold engagement. Mask resonance is specifically, when we're talking about mask resonance, you're talking about resonance in the sinuses. Usually that is synonymous with the singer's formant and being able to utilize the singer's formant. JAPADOGI is talking to Aldo. Yeah, that's true. I don't use Autotune on my recordings. Joey, fine, excellent. Thanks for all the great answers. You are very, very welcome. Joey, what vocal exercises do you recommend for hoarse and scratchy voices? I've been sick and I've been trying not to sing. Well, first of all, rest, for first and foremost, if you're still hoarse and scratchy, rest. You're not ready to sing yet. The first thing that I do when I have a vocalist who has been sick or is hoarse or scratchy or strain their voices is to see if they can vocalize through the secondo passaggio. If you cannot vocalize through the secondo passaggio, then you still need to rest more. Once you can vocalize through the secondo passaggio, then you might try the gentle warm-up. The gentle warm-up I did is just very, very easy, and it's a very easy, like, gentle way to get into singing your voice again. You probably move a lot of mucus around and knock some stuff loose. That's to be expected if you've been sick. Just spit it out, stay well hydrated, and then you'll probably be all right. But the key is make sure that if you cannot vocalize over the secondo passaggio, you gotta rest. You still have to rest. That's Big Jimmy. Hi, and hello to you. Just want to know how I can control my... I think that's stress. There's an S missing there. Sometimes I forget to breathe. Oof. Yeah, okay, right. You corrected that. That's cool. Okay. I'm going to read the rest of that. Or do you have some exercises to learn how to breathe automatically? Okay. Stress is a tough one. When I get stressed out on stage, I focus on my abdominal area. That's what comforts me. That's what keeps me focused. I don't know if I can necessarily suggest exercises that'll help you breathe automatically, but there are exercises that will fine-tune your breathing efficiency so that when you do breathe, you get right back to 80 to 90% filled, and you're ready to go. And that's in the diaphragmatic warm-up. So if you search my channel, there's a diaphragmatic warm-up for male vocalists. The specific exercise is this: he, short note, short breath, short note, short breath. Super, super good for coordination and getting really, really efficient breaths. I believe that's also in the How to Improve Your Tone video, which came out 2 weeks ago. And that is, by the way, someone asked about how those exercises are supposed to improve your tone. It's about balancing the tone. When you do that many tonal onsets back to back, you really start to get the right balance of subglottic pressure and vocal fold engagement, and that improves your tone and then allows you to sing it through the melismatic scale at the end of it. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful tone building exercise. Ahmed, you are welcome. Thank you for your question. Thank you for joining us this evening. K Boogie, any tips on how to improve harmonizing? Well, you could certainly start if you haven't seen the How to Sing Harmony videos that I've done. Do a quick search for those, and that'll at least get you started. The thing about harmonizing is a better command of solfege and of just aural skills in general is going to help with your harmony singing. Being really, really independent as a vocalist, so being able to listen to your lead vocalist while still maintaining your line is really critical, because that way, it's not that you want to adapt to them necessarily, but you'll hear that you'll hear if the parts are off, and that can help you get back on, obviously. But if you listen too closely, or if you don't have enough independence, then you'll piggyback on their part. But perhaps, like, in terms of practicing, maybe check out the videos that are on the channel and use those as a starting point. And then my next suggestion would be to record yourself singing something simple, and then learn to harmonize with yourself. You can practice in an unlimited amount with that before you have to get in front of somebody else and test out your skill set. Recovery exercises. Capone, yeah, recovery exercises if your voice is a little cracked or hoarse after the flu. Exactly, yeah. But again, check the secondo passaggio first. If you cannot vocalize above the secondo passaggio, you're not recovered enough yet. Yeah, emotion plus technique, yin yang, brother. Right on. Mike Marshall, I love vibrato. I've heard you can force it incorrectly. What does that feel like, and how do you prevent it? It'll feel like muscle manipulation around the throat, and it will be very, very choppy. How do you prevent it? Focus on sustained sounds. Focus on a sustained delivery of your voice instead of whether or not you have a vibrato. So focus on your airflow and engagement so that you have a nice released timbre to your voice. You will notice over time that your voice will start to wiggle a little bit, and that wiggle will be the interplay between the vocal fold and the subglottic pressure, the airflow, and you can start to encourage that, and that will then get your vibrato going. Capone, mine. Vibrato exercises for your channel? Yeah, there's a couple, Capone. There's a couple vibrato exercises on the channel. The endurance, I think it is actually labeled how to sing with vibrato or vibrato starter or something like that. If you search for it, you'll find it. Or send an email to me and I'll send you a link. Patricia, you really need to tell us a standard sequence of videos to follow for a complete vocal tour from warm-up to the stars for those who are beginners and intermediate. I was just mentioning before you signed on, Patricia, that I'm writing a book that's going to do that in a way. Being that every vocalist, everyone who uses the channel is a little bit different. I'm different from all of you, and you are all different from me, and each one of you has different challenges, different strengths, different vowels that may be challenging. And so there actually isn't like a master sequence. In the way that I built the channel was to enable you to spot check your voice and say, oh, my A vowel isn't quite in alignment. And then go and look and find this video over here and says, oh, here's how to align my A vowel. Or my U vowel is too narrow. Oh, here's how to open up vowel modifications. Here's how to open those up a little bit. So each of you can move from skill set to skill set to skill set with observations of your own vocal delivery to then improve your overall vocal delivery. I play keyboard a little. This is K Boogie. Are there any exercises you are familiar with on improving riffing over just chords you play? Work on agility exercises. That's really what riffing is about. If you don't have enough vocal release, then you're going to be forcing your voice around and you'll get stuck and it can be overly tense. So there are, I think there's a vocal agility playlist actually on the channel. I would check that out. Also, the diaphragmatic breathing warm-up that I mentioned earlier will help a lot with agility because that engagement is going to loosen the vocal fold quite significantly. Joey, is it normal for my range to drop from a G2 to an E2? Wow, that's incredible. It's like when I get to work with alto range vocalists, I love that sound of the low female voice and the low male vocals that can sing down there because I can't sing down there. If you mean like from when your voice changed, I suppose. Oh, when you're sick. Yeah, you'll get a couple G2 to E2. Yeah, that's a little bit wider than some, but usually you get about another major second, minor third. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's right. You guys are talking. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Big Jimmy, thank you. Oh, I do try. Thank you very much for your kind words. I really appreciate it. Denise, how should proper breath support for singing feel like? What are the best ways to practice proper breath support? What does it feel like? It feels amazing, is what it feels like. It does take a lot of energy, though, but it's an energy that is through the core of the body. Um, there is the expansion of the rib cage feels. Um, some of my friends and clients that I've worked with say that like you look like a lizard breathing. Well, actually, they said I look like a lizard when I'm expanding that way, and I suppose it can feel a bit. I hate to use the word forced because I never want to suggest that you should force anything, and that's not what we're doing. But maintaining that expansion while we're expelling air feels really strange because you're resisting this urge to allow the ribcage to collapse. So you have to maintain that expansion the entire time during phonation and inhalation, and that then allows the rectus abdominis muscles, the front, abdominal muscles, to interact with the diaphragm, and that's what gives us the suspension. But when my breathing is working well and I have good expansion and engagement and phonation, so everything is working really well, it feels like you're suspended in time, like things seem to float out of the voice. There isn't so much a sensation of pushing or airflow or anything like that. The thing that I think about, the metaphor that I often use, is that of a violin and a bow. When a bow, makes contact with the string and the sound just seems to, emanate in all ways from the instrument. And that's what it feels like. And I'm sorry, that's not terribly objective. But if you search the channel for Apagio, which is the breath management system that I teach, there's a lot of examples and some exercises and things like that that you can try. The diaphragmatic breathing video for female voices would also take you through a lot of exercises, both vocalizations and breathing wise. But that diaphragmatic warm up does not include the explanations and how to orient your body to have correct engagement. Yuri, a couple questions, but they were already answered, so I just want to say a huge thank you to you. Your videos are awesome, and I always warm up to them before recording. Awesome. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it, and I assure you I'm going to keep it up. Joey, have trouble announcing words regardless of being sick or not. Is this to do with tongue tension? Probably. Yeah, if your tongue is really, really tense inside your mouth, then it's not going to be free to articulate the different types of consonants. I haven't done any of those videos. I should probably, at some point, I'm going to have to throw out like a tongue twister video so that you can practice your articulators. Mike Marshall, thank you very much. It's a guidebook. It's a guidebook. So it's going to be a guidebook to this channel. Joey, people are having trouble understanding what I'm saying. I have to repeat myself often. It's probably the articulators. Patricia, tell you, I teach to a vocal ensemble, usually 3 to 4 part songs. People really have a hard time to keep their line. But in the end, it is a wonderful resource. It is truly lovely. When you get everyone singing their lines, it is amazing. Thank you, Yuri. I appreciate that. And I'm working really, really hard. So it's been very, I don't mean to tease, but it's been very, very exciting as I've begun to conceptualize of how I can cross-reference the data from the videos with the book to allow for different means by which to search it so that you can keep on working concepts in different ways. I'm very excited about it. K Boogie, styles of genre are different. If I want to sing R&B, what are things I should focus on? Personally, I don't think we ever go wrong with agility. Whatever genre it is that you want to sing, if you have an agile voice that can adapt from one line to the next, you are going to be agile enough to riff, which would be germane in an R&B song. You're going to be agile enough to be on the vocal fold or off the vocal fold in the same song and get back on if necessary. That also entails good control over the zona de passaggio as well, but But yeah, agility. Patricia, lizards? I'm not sure what that means, but I like it. Joey, thank you so much. You're definitely one of the most knowledgeable teachers I've come across. I really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much for your kind words. I really appreciate it, and I do my best to stay absolutely on my game and give you guys the best answers that I can possibly give based upon the existent knowledge and personal experience and training that I have had. And yes, I got to wrap this up. I've gone over. I love it. I love the Yoda thing. How could I not love? How could I not love being compared to Yoda? Um, uh, thank you very, very much. It has been so much fun. I really, really love the questions. I love helping you guys out. Take really, really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. I'll see you next week. I love being thought of as Yoda, or at least compared to him in any possible way. That being said, I am now catching up on Star Trek Voyager, so I'm going to hit some more of those reruns. And K Boogie, specific scales or exercises I can do on my keyboard now to riff better. Start with what you know or what you're working on. So if you're doing pop rock, then it's probably going to be diatonic to the major scale. If you're doing the blues, then do it with the blues. You get the idea, you know. Although I suppose with blues you could also do mixolydian, so that way you wouldn't be completely like stuck with the blues scale. Lizards. All right. Thank you for clarifying. See you next week, everybody. Take really good care of your voices. Such a great session tonight. Thank you.